Today on How It's Made. Steel safes, false teeth, airplanes, and maple syrup. The first bank safes were made of wood reinforced with sheet iron. Thieves would just smash them open. Then came safes made of solid iron. Thieves would just blow them up. But then, to the crook's dismay, came safes made of steel. It all starts with sheets of solid steel up to 3.5 centimeters thick and an automated machine with an oxygen and gas-fueled flame. The flame slowly cuts the plates that will form the walls of the safe. The cutting creates gases that are doused with water. A welder with a manual version of the same flame frees up the plates with a few last cuts. Then, using a large magnet, they stack the plates. Each one is labeled so the workers will know in what order to assemble them. They're assembled by a welder who uses a semi-automatic soldering gun. The solder is a special welding wire made of several different metals. It rolls off a spool as needed. Elsewhere in the factory, a semi-automatic saw cuts flat bars of steel. These bars will form the frame that'll surround the steel plates. Meanwhile, another machine called a turret fashions steel bars into moving parts for the locking mechanism, and also into hinges. That milky liquid is a lubricant. Normally, you see raw material move on an assembly line from tool to tool. This is just the opposite. The steel bar stays on the turret from start to finish. The tools come and go. Workers take pieces of sheet metal cut into shapes by laser and bend them in a press to make various parts and mechanisms. Meanwhile, the large steel plates they cut earlier go into a hydraulic press to make them perfectly flat. It's finally time to put all the components together. They construct the frame in an assembly jig, then insert the plates for the sides, top, and bottom. Using the semi-automatic soldering gun again, they fuse the pieces together. They measure the angles, then use a giant clamp to square the safe. Finally, they install the plate for the back of the safe and solder the joints. They stand the safe upright and grind down the soldering lines until they're smooth. This factory also produces what's called a composite safe, made of soft materials such as copper, aluminum, and low-grade steel. But it has a cement core, making this safe harder to break into. The finished safe gets 3 coats of paint. Then in the finishing department, they install the mechanical or electronic locks and locking mechanisms, as well as the internal time lock mechanism. The time lock allows access to the safe only at certain times of day, such as the bank's business hours. Even if someone picks the outside combination locks, the door won't open outside those set hours. The machines that sterilize medical instruments use ethylene oxide, a highly toxic gas. Now, there's a new method that's safer, more effective, and less expensive. This new machine uses ozone as the sterilizing agent. Ozone is a form of oxygen. Until the 1800s, false teeth were made of animal bone, ivory, or actual human teeth. They came from poor people who sold their teeth and from dead bodies. Today's dentures are usually ceramic. They start by heating a sheet of wax over a flame. They press it onto a rough plaster model of the patient's mouth sent in by the dentist. The lab technicians use this model to prepare what's called an impression tray, what the dentist will use to make a rubber mold to cast the dentures. They apply an acrylic material over the wax lining, forming a handle so they'll be able to remove it afterwards. Once the acrylic hardens, they pull it out of the model and discard the wax. The dentist fills this new acrylic tray with rubber to take a final impression. The lab uses the hardened rubber as a negative mold of the patient's mouth. They fill it with plaster to make a new, more precise plaster model. Then they use the new model to make the part of the dentures that fits on top of the patient's gums. They take special orthodontic acrylic and press it into the model to form what's called the base plate. Then they heat a sheet of wax to form a rim on the base. This new acrylic and wax model now goes back for another